Well, my name is Dave Blanchard. I'm the CEO of the Og Mandino Group. Some of you are familiar with Og Mandino. He wrote the best-selling book, The Greatest Salesman in the World. That book has sold 25 million copies, and it's my privilege to bring his principles to the 21st century. I get often asked, how did I meet Og Mandino? And I must tell you that in this life I haven't. In 1996, Og passed away, and I had the privilege of working on a feature film script. I was writing the feature film script for one of his books called The Christ Commission. Betty said that that's the book Og wanted to write. It's the only book he wanted to write. It's a great little story, and I had the privilege of reading it, and then a couple of months later being asked to write the feature film script. Had that privilege, went down to Phoenix and delivered the script to Betty, and Betty and I became fast friends. And it was about, I would say almost 2 years later when Betty called me. I was standing in the cancellation line of the Lion King in Manhattan, in New York. I was there shooting some TV commercials for CNBC, and I was asked by Betty, she said, Dave, the rights to the greatest salesman in the world are not being renewed. And I won't tell you who it was, but his very famous TV personality was at the time suffering from cancer. She said, would you be interested? And I said, I'd be so delighted. Actually, what I said to her is this a rhetorical question? But I was so delighted to have the privilege of bringing these principles into the 21st century. We spent the next 2 hours while I was standing in that cancellation line negotiating with her attorney in New York, the publisher in Florida, our attorney in California, and by the time we got in to see the play, which we all were able to see, there was a framework made for me to leave the film industry and to go back to my roots as a coach and consultant and become the CEO of the Og Mandino Group. Well, it's been my privilege for the last 12 years to spend my time in this space right here. This is a measurement. This is what it looks like on our website. Everyone here is welcome to go to ogmandino.com and take a free assessment. We used to charge $300 just for the experience. You can go and take the assessment. When you get to these results, click on each one of the measurements and listen to what an ideal balanced thought would be saying to you and what your thoughts may be saying to you. Now keep in mind, when I did this the first time, and there are 7 recorded messages for each one of these measurements. 6.4 quadrillion variables on each side. It's quite complex, the mathematics. And I recorded them, and each one of them were 5 minutes in length the first time. Then everyone said, that's just too long to sit here and listen to 5-minute messages, so I cut them down to 2.5. Then I re-recorded everything again at 20 seconds. I've been asked to say in 20 seconds what we could spend hours on each measurement. And that was just based on thousands of experiences. I've been through debriefs with people on this instrument personally over 4,300 times. Now that's a lot of times. You start to get a pretty good idea of how this thought process is showing up in somebody's life when it's consistent time and time again. So I've done my very best. So when you listen to the measurement, if it's not exact, ask yourself, well, how does this show up for me? And then just start searching. It's called the Formal Science of Axiological Mathematics. It's a mouthful. It's Cantor's Transfinite Calculus. It was developed by Robert S. Hartman, Dr. Hartman from the Hartman Institute at the University of Tennessee. I love the math. It's so exciting to be able to go this deep with a human being. When I start an assessment debrief, it starts like this. Peter, if I may use you. Peter, we're going to go someplace where you may have never been with another human being. And I'm just here to serve you. I come without judgment. I'm an empty vessel. I'm just bringing my knowledge of the mathematics to step into your world and help you sort through your thought processes, to find out which ones are supporting you and which ones are sabotaging you. Here's the most important thing I'll say to you during this process. Peter, you are not your thoughts. These are just thoughts. However, Og Mandino said in scroll number 1, I have surrendered my free will to these years of accumulated habits. We're looking at them. And the past deeds of my life, what we do when we follow these thoughts, have already threatened to imprison my future. So sometimes we're subject to our thoughts. We listen to them and they sabotage our lives, but we are not our thoughts. We have, as human beings, one of the greatest gifts possible. It's called metacognition. It means we're beyond thought. We can step back from our thinking and choose to change a thought. This is a great discovery. Just in the last decade and a half, neuroscientists have made huge strides in this area. They say that our brain has neuroplasticity. What that means is that it's malleable like Play-Doh. We actually can change the way a neuron fires. Og talked about this. It was very interesting that he wrote on this topic in 1968. I love what he said. He said, I'll begin, as we're doing this, changing this habit, he said, I'll begin to awake each morning with a vitality I've never known before. My vigor will increase, my enthusiasm. My enthusiasm is my divinity within me. My goodness will begin to rise. My desire to meet every fear I once knew at sunrise will make me happier than I ever believed possible in this world of strife and sorrow. It's a great discovery. Now, I don't throw up like this on somebody, but I'm giving you kind of the short version here. The bottom line is, let's find out what's going on. And let's find out principles and practices and processes that can help you actually shift that thought. Because this is what we know. When that new habit is formed, the brain will prune off the old habit. It's called synaptic pruning. It'll cut off the old habit, and you will wake up and go, wow, I never thought I could be this happy in this world of strife and sorrow. He didn't say the world was going to become perfect. We're going to show up differently in the world. Big difference. And then we begin the process. I have you share with me some things about your life that you think were significant, that shaped your character. And then we start going through these thought processes. We have discovered some amazing things in this process. And I want to share just a few of them with you because I want to talk about the most common that could be pertinent to you tonight. That could be a great blessing and one that potentially could be a great challenge. So tonight isn't about entertainment. It's about rolling our sleeves up and let's take a look. Would you be okay with that? After doing this 4,300 times myself and as a company with our coaches, thousands of times, tens of thousands of times, we've discovered something phenomenal. And you can see it in this assessment. It may not be as evident if you don't know all the pieces, but if we're looking, well, that's not much of a little red light. On the left-hand side, we have 6 measurements dealing with connection with people. We have 6 measurements that impact us when we're doing tasks. 6 measurements about order and discipline and structure. We have found that the vast majority of those who want to do something significant with their life, which I would suggest would be all those who are here today, have relatively high levels of empathy and intuition. Great discovery, huh? However, over 90% are rather reclusive. Now, that's not an oxymoron per se, to be empathetic and be reclusive. We may not know the strength until we step out of our cocoon to have a conversation with someone. We have some here who were here earlier in the My Life discussion when we're talking about network marketing. This would be a classic example. Someone with a high level of empathy steps outside of their cocoon and goes and talks to a friend or a neighbor about their business. However, they're a little uncomfortable, right? And they've been told to just do it with enthusiasm, right? So we throw up all over somebody. Or we try to be strategic in our conversations. And we feel uncomfortable because at some core level, we feel as though we are violating that person's space. Truth is, we are. The truth is, we are. Tonight, we're going to dig deep into this one principle of how do we take your empathy and help you become comfortable in conversations with other people. If anyone here ever feels uncomfortable having a conversation, particularly if you want to persuade them or enroll them or encourage them to do something you want to do, I want to take you into the dynamics and show you your single greatest asset. And it's interesting that the talk preceding me was about the disposal of all of our crap. Thought that was interesting, because we're going to learn how to dispose of all of our stuff that we've been dragging around behind us. Would you like to know how to do that? Would that be a good thing to do? Okay. So here we go. Og Mandino wrote a scroll called Scroll Number 2, I'll Greet This Day with Love in My Heart. He tells us that the greatest secret of success is love. Now, we wrote all the scrolls in one night. There was only one scroll Betty asked him to amend, and it was this one. It was too complicated for 1968. He understood this principle. The Greeks didn't just call it love. They referred to it as eros if it was erotic, pia if it was maternal, philo if it was brotherly, and agape if it was a heightened level of awareness. The love that Og was talking about, and if you're like me and you love to study the Bible, you'll discover that agape was translated into the English word charity. When we understand the Greek meaning, we understand the word for charity. Charity was subsequently translated in more recent translations of the Bible just to the word love. We kind of watered it down just a little bit, and I think we lost some of the punch. Some of the punch. Agape is the ability to step back and see things from a heightened level of awareness. To see somebody without bias and prejudice, not to get caught up in how they look or how they talk or their economic status. It's the ability to step back and see the humanity, the uniqueness, the pricelessness in a human being. It's the ability to step back from a challenge and see it for what it is. This is agape love. I want to walk you into, if you've got a paper and pen, I did not know we were going to talk about this till 4 o'clock. I could feel it when I was having a conversation with you earlier that we needed to go deeper here. So we're going to go. So you'll need to take notes because you won't see it on a slide. Agape love requires 3 areas of awareness. Area number 1. When I am facing a challenge, I embrace it. I embrace it. If we want life to be easy, without stress, without pain, without frustration, no more time freedom, or more time freedom and financial freedom, if we want it to be easy, it's going to be very hard to face a challenge and take it on. When Og said to us that this is the greatest secret of success in all ventures, muscle can split a shield and even destroy a life. We can be forceful, but only the unseen power of this kind of love, of awareness, can open the hearts of men. Until I master this art, I'm no more than a peddler in the marketplace. I'll make this my greatest weapon, and none on whom I call can defend against its force. He said, I can melt all hearts like into the sun whose rays soften the coldest clay. And then he says, and how will I do this? How will I do this? And he tells us we have to learn to love the rain, not just the sunshine, to endure sadness, to fall in love with the darkness, not just the light, and to embrace our challenges. In 1989, I shared earlier today that we lost millions in the real estate collapse in Southern California. We were facing $1 million in debt. It took 10 years to pay it back. And as we were pulling out of the driveway, I'm in a Ryder truck, my father's in the second Ryder truck, and Ramona's in there. Hi, sweetheart. She's right here with us. Just stand up and say hi to everybody. This is our sweetheart, my sweetheart, the mother of our 7 children and 22 grandchildren, and just absolutely embodies the principle we're sharing. She's driving the van, 7 children, and they're singing camp songs. I'm bawling because we're leaving our dream home, and I just sold 2 of my priceless treasures out of the back of it to the person who bought our home. My world is coming to an end, and she's singing camp songs. Retrospectively, when I saw this particular scroll, I love the light, for it shows me the way, yet I love the darkness, for it shows me the stars. Had a whole new meaning. I reflected back on that moment, and I thought, how many times does the sunlight of success, it's a metaphor, the sunlight of success, obscure us from seeing the diamonds in our life? The stars. Mythologically, those were diamonds. I was so busy accumulating millions of dollars that I really wasn't as available as I should have been as a husband and a father. I was more interested in getting my Ferrari. Yes, I had one, 12 days. 10 of them, it was in the shop. If you got a fantasy around a Ferrari, change your fantasy. It's not worth the money. But there we were in the darkness of our lives. The sunlight was out, and I could see the stars. If you're in the middle of a dark moment in your life, consider how it's helping you get back to basics, to those things that matter most in your life. I love the light, for it shows me the way, yet I love the darkness, for it shows me the stars. Og is telling us that the first stage of agape love is how we handle our own challenges. Do we resent them? Do we resist them? Are we angry? Are we frustrated? Or do we embrace them and say, okay, what have I got to learn from this one? Now, it's easier to talk about it up here than it is to be in the middle of one, no question. But I can tell you, the sooner we embrace it, the quicker we get through it and learn the lesson. So that's one. 2, the second one I learned from a dear friend. Ramona and I have friends in Atlanta, Georgia, and North Carolina. Their office is in Georgia, their home's in North Carolina. Susan Zambranen, was in Atlanta at a friend's home one night, sitting around the back deck. They had a citronelle oil fire pot. You ever seen one of those? Kind of lighting the night. And it was getting low in fuel. So her friend, the host, took the container and poured some oil in, except for it exploded. And Susan had on shorts, and the oil, the burning oil, covered her legs and her feet. Her friend put out the fire with her bare hands. And when it was done, Susan had 3rd-degree burns from her knees down. Now, if anybody here has ever had a burn, you know what pain I'm talking about. We got word. We were up at Bear Lake. We got word. We're driving home. I can tell you exactly where I was coming through Logan, Utah, as we were able to reach Susan on the phone. A few hours earlier, she'd been in surgery having this skin scraped off. I mean, it made me weak to think. And she got on the phone. The first thing she said was this: "Oh, David, I feel so blessed. I feel so blessed. One of the best burn centers in the country was only a couple miles away. I was at the home of a dear friend. My husband was able to come immediately to serve me." I'm thinking, oh my goodness, did it hurt? I didn't know what else to say. She said, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, it was an 11. Yes, it hurt. Susan, for the next few weeks, and continues to practice the second level of agape love, which is how we show up in our challenges with an awareness of how it impacts others around us. How often do we want to become the victims? We want people to know how much we're suffering, how difficult it's been for us, all the sacrifices we're making. Agape love requires that we stand up and become highly aware of how our experience could impact someone else, how we show up in our experience will either depress them or encourage them to take their life to another level. It'll encourage them to take their challenges on with more courage. Now, that's a high level of awareness. The third, you ready for the third? It has to do with empathy. M-E-M means to stand on someone's path. Empathy. It prepares us to better understand what another person might be experiencing. That's agape love. When you read in the Bible in 1 Corinthians chapter 13 about faith, hope, and charity, this is the charity that's being discussed. Kind, thoughtful, considerate, all of the descriptions of this charity. We show up in our challenges with courage. We show up for others. We're kind and patient. We bring our experience to the service of another person. And when that which is perfect comes, we shall see as we are seen. We'll no longer be looking through a glass darkly, which is a metal mirror that's tarnished. We'll actually really, truly not only be able to see ourselves the way we're seen, we'll see others the way they're seen. When I was a child, I thought as a child, but I have put away my childish ways. In other words, it's no longer about me. I'm here to serve others. So I take on my challenges, I show up, and I learn from them. And I'm able in that way to serve at a very high level. Pondering this process, I was in Chicago. In Chicago, I was going to speak the next day to a convention for a company. And I'd had the privilege of doing this assessment with over 100 of the people that would be in attendance. There'd be 700 or 800 people there. I knew the challenges they were facing, and self-esteem was one of them. They're really troubled in their self-esteem. And I was trying to seek, as I did in preparation for today, guidance for what I could share that would bless the lives of the people. And I went to sleep. And I had a dream. And I'll share my dream with you tonight. This is what I was impressed to do. Peter, you were with us at A&MP. I wasn't going to share it there, and there was somebody who needed to know it. And sure enough, they came up after and they needed to know it. So somebody must need to know this tonight. In this dream, I'm walking on a path. And I am very aware that over my right shoulder is a large white muslin sack. And I'm dragging it. I want you all to go like this with me, because everybody's got one. Everybody got one? I'm dragging this, and it weighs a couple 100 pounds. And I'm exhausted from dragging all this stuff in my sack. And a man starts to approach me. And I want to connect with this man. And it becomes so obvious what I should do. I'm going through the mechanics. Look for the good. Ask questions. Listen. Create a safe place. All the steps of what we call intrinsic validation. However, I was exhausted. And this voice said to me, let go of the sack. Just let go of your sack for a moment. Just feel it. I thought that's where I was going to be headed. Oh my goodness, I get to travel without my sack. And the voice almost immediately said, turn around and face the sack. So just take a look. I didn't want to. I knew what was in that sack. Do you know what's in yours? Yep, I see some heads nodding. This was everything that had ever been done to me, everything I'd ever done to another person, every failure I'd ever had, every discouragement, every sense of inability. That was all sitting in that sack. I didn't want to look, but I was told, turn around and look, so I did. And then I was told the worst possible thing, empty the sack. Oh, empty your sack with me for a moment. When I did, there was a whole stack of these silver orbs about 5 inches in diameter, and they had spikes on them, really sharp spikes, a whole pile of them. And then I was asked to pick up the most painful. Just join me. Just reach down and pick up your most painful. If you can. For some, it might be too painful to look at. Pick up a different one. But pick up one of those things that has created some tremendous angst for you in your life. I'm in Chicago, and mine happened in Chicago. I'm between the age of 2 and 4. My father's going to school in Chicago during the day, working all night. My mother's working in a high-rise. She grew up in Amalga, Utah. If anybody knows where that is, it's just outside of Smithfield. It's not the end of the earth, but if you stand on the house, you can see the end of the earth from that farm. And she's in a high-rise, and this is very troubling for her. It was a difficult time. And there was this wonderful couple who could not have children who befriended our family and took my sister and me under their wing. And they bought us clothes my parents could not afford to buy. We had Santa Claus come to it wasn't a one-bedroom apartment, it was a one-room apartment with Murphy beds, and my parents cooked with a popcorn popper. Unbelievable godsend to my parents. Challenge, they were pedophiles. I'm 50 years old holding this in my hand. Do I want to look at this? I've been avoiding this for a lifetime. And then I got powerful instructions I want to share with you tonight. Because I'm holding it, wondering why this had to happen to me. I didn't want this. I wanted to be someone else, somewhere else, doing something different. I didn't want this. But I was asked a question, and I'll have you ask yourselves tonight. Is anyone else suffering from a similar wound? And I said, yes. Then take this and engrave it on your heart. Well, I took it, and you just join me. Just press it against your chest. I was surprised that it just slid right in. Felt a sense of ownership, of empowerment. Picked up the next. Asked the same question. Anyone else suffering from a similar wound? Yes. Then engrave it on your heart. By the time that pile was gone and my heart was full, I was told to turn around and face the man who had been approaching me. And in that moment, and for the first time, I saw that he was dragging a sack. I couldn't see his until I owned mine. That which had been a burden was now going to be used as a blessing. I knew where he was. I knew the questions to ask. I could lift his burden by being a person who understood where he was. Oh, somebody finally understands me. Yes. And walls come down, and cooperation and productivity flood out. And the voice said to me, David, your character has been forged in the furnace of adversity. You know what pain feels like. You cannot take it back. Can't change the past. But you can choose to use that experience to better understand and connect with another person. And if you'll use it that way, there will finally be purpose in the suffering. You didn't have it so you could do this. It's happened. You can't change it, but you can use it to serve. You can bring this heightened level of awareness, this agape love, to a conversation and hear things other people may not hear and ask questions others may not dare to ask. And when you do, there will finally be the purpose in the suffering. There will be joy in your journey and much needed healing in your soul. I remember a couple years later having an impression to talk to a friend. Hadn't talked to him for a year and a half. Called him on the phone late in the afternoon when I finally had an opening in the coaching schedule that I thought would be sufficient to have a conversation. I asked him how he was doing, and he responded, "I'm doing great." Don't we all say that no matter what's going on? Doing great. I had courage because I could feel it. Then why can't I get your name off my mind? Silence is a friend of a good listener. And I stayed silent. And you could begin to feel the tumblers in the lock. And pretty soon the vault opened. And he said, "Do you want to know?" And I said, "I'm here to serve." And he began to share a tale of woes of such magnitude. Crushing. The kind of thing that just suffocates a person. And I knew that dark night. I knew it. He had more happening in his life than I had happening in mine in my dark night, and I almost took my life. Remember, that was in my sack is now in my heart. I'm listening differently. One question, that's all I ask. One question. When he finished talking, I simply asked him, anybody want to guess? How seriously are you considering suicide? And he began to weep. It's all I've been thinking about. Now, I told this story in the book. What I did not put in the book was that was the night. That was going to be the night. When we own our life experiences and have them here in our hearts, and we start the day with this prayer, if there is anyone I can serve, which means I, based on what was in my sack that's now in my heart, if there's anyone I can serve, put them on my path, and I will serve them. My promise to you is if you wear your burden in your heart as a reference point, agape love, a heightened level of awareness, you'll have unspeakable experiences. Do you think I was joyful that night when I went to sleep? Oh my goodness. And Ramona knows that we've had that experience 2 or 3 times this week. Now, our other option is to drag this stuff around. Some of us have been really become accustomed to it. We don't like it, but our challenge is, but David, if I let it go, if I put it in my heart and just focus on serving other people, how will people know how much I've suffered? How will they know how much I've sacrificed and how hard it's been in my life? Well, here's some great news for you tonight. You ready? Nobody cares. It's not that they don't want to. They're spending all their energy dragging around their sack and trying to look okay. Are they doing a good job? Most of us look at them and say, wow, they really look okay. They're not okay. And we show up needy, wanting to be understood, and we suck energy from this one and from this one and this one, and we become resentful because we didn't get from any one of them all that we needed. But we got all they had, even though they looked like they had more. They didn't have any more. This is a great secret to know. We can spend our life dragging and wallowing, or we can use this as a reference point, a heightened level of awareness to connect with another human being. And the math is on your side. Because Dr. Robert S. Hartman measured in his Nobel-nominated work that in a non-adversarial relationship, that's between a husband and wife with a good relationship, a person holds back 40% of their cooperation and productivity behind their wall until they feel understood, feel valued. That's how we value a human being. And how often, men, ladies, do we finish each other's sentences? How often do we really just listen? I say to my male clients, sit down with your companion tonight and say, tell me about your day, and then just listen. You most likely will have a solution for every problem. Don't give it. And if you're asked, ladies, help us out here. If you're asked, what should I do? Men, I want you to respond this way. Would you like my advice, or would you prefer I just listen? Ladies? It's almost rhetorical, isn't it? Could you just listen? We're fixers. When we understand there is a wall, the wall comes down when we are safe. Safe means we listen. Here's a clue. Someone's talking to us. They finish talking, and we just lean in. Count 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. What are we doing? What do we typically do? Has anybody been in a conversation with someone that every time you go to take a breath, they jump in? Every time you tell a story, they tell a better one? Anybody been in a conversation like that? Anybody been the other side of that conversation? Try this week. Listen, and when they finish talking, just lean in. And watch them downshift and share more. And see how powerful the next piece actually is. It could be more important than anything you've heard so far. They're shifting out of left brain into right brain, head into heart, and they will begin to share. We have become safe because we're not trying to fix them. We're not trying to enter the sentences. We're actually listening without an agenda. We create the safe place by bringing all of our experiences, reference points, heightened level of awareness, and as we listen, we'll have questions float to the surface. How seriously are you considering suicide? Do you ever lose sleep at night? What's it like right now for your family? Things that you know because you've been there. And when we ask those questions, we are demonstrating that we understand. And when someone feels understood, we are finally safe. As Og says, I take down those walls of hate and suspicion which they built round their hearts, and in its place I build a bridge so that my love, my awareness, can enter their soul. And connection has been made. If you're in a business and you've got a product, I can promise you that when you're in this space with a human being, more often than not, the conversation will turn to the very things you're doing. They might even ask you, what are you doing? And we give them one sentence and step back into their world. For an example, if you're selling a health product, you're going to find out someone is not healthy or they're having a challenge. Well, what are you doing? What have you tried? How is it working? What do you like best? Are you open to a possibility? Now that line has been used by a lot of people very prematurely, and it's really awkward. But when we're in that space, it's very powerful. In the book, I walk through what are called the principles of intrinsic validation, which means, how do we create this safe place? And I give you several stories and examples so you can begin practicing. And after you've reached this moment of decision, what could you share? What is the right time for sharing? What is the right way to share? How do you gain agreement so you can share? What do you do when objections show up in a conversation? Whether you're trying to promote a product or you leave this event so excited about preparation, and if you're here for the first time, isn't this interesting? You just got your soul moved today. Oh my goodness, I need to do something, which often gets translated into everybody else needs to do something. And it's taken you 42 years to come to an event. Don't expect your neighbors to change their mind in a week. There's nothing more intolerant than someone who's just been convinced of a new concept. Let us be patient and kind to ourselves and to others. So I share those principles with you. And Og says to us in the end of this particular scroll, scroll number 2, I'll read this to you, it's wonderful. He says, if I have no other qualities than this agape love, I can succeed with this love alone. Without it, I will fail, though I possess all the knowledge and skills of the world. For the last decade, we have been taught to focus here. We either do it by being victims or by dominating conversations. Everything is about us. The greatest secret of success is when we take our life experiences, wear them in our heart, and show up in the service of another person. That's the greatest secret of success in all ventures. How are we doing for time? It's been a long day for everyone. It's been such a privilege to be with you. If I can serve you, I'm going to go back upstairs for a little while. If you'd like to pick up a copy of the book, it took me 4 years. I wrote from 4 a.m. in the morning till 8 a.m. in the morning for 4 years. I was driven by teaching these very principles, the one I just shared and another one, which is the way we use our minds. I talked about this earlier today, where we engage in fantasy. Because the risk with fantasy, when we create an expectation and life shows up differently, the sequence, and you can see it on this one. Look in the bottom right-hand side at a red bar. It's called goal-oriented. It's a measurement of how vividly someone visualizes. Go to the next one up. First measurement, grateful. This is how someone's feeling about their life. By now, I thought I would be what? By now, I thought it would be what? It is what it is, but it's only a challenge in respect to the expectation we created for it. Instead of taking what is and creating, we're living in resentment and frustration. And it's very natural. Go to the top bar, top section, and look at the measurement confident. It is human nature to turn inward and question our worth and our worthiness and our ability. What is wrong with me? It seems to be working for everyone else. I watched for a decade while people taught that you can look up to the universe and ask it whatever you want and it delivers. And for $25,000, I can show you how. And people would walk out with exit interviews. I just knew there was a way to manifest this into my life. And those people spent everything they had on credit cards, everything they had in home equity loans, and they end up broken, and angry. Because it doesn't work that way. Vivid visualization never creates tangible reality. What it creates is the manifestations of ideas and impressions and solutions to challenges that light up part of our brain we normally don't use, wired to a functional MRI. It ignites our passion, our willingness to suffer for something we love, and we will go and do the work of creation. Nobody gets to skip it, but we get the choice. We get to do it mission, vision, and passion-driven, or it gets to be hard, boring, mundane, repetitious, and burdensome. The choice is ours. But nobody gets to skip it. And we have been trying to figure out how to skip it for a long time. And I wrote from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. for 4 years because I wanted people to know the real principles for creating real tangible wealth. What did we use to create them? What did we use to pay back $1 million in debt? What did we do to rebuild a multi-million-dollar estate? How are we where we are right now? These are the reasons. These are the principles. Taking Og Mandino's time-tested principles and the life experiences, bringing them to life so that you can do so in your life. If I can serve you, I'll be upstairs. The book's $19.95. In the back is a CD of Og Mandino narrating the 10 scrolls found in the book, put to music. He recorded those in the spring of the year that he passed away. We sell that CD for $20 on our website. The book's $20 with the CD. If you will assist me in taking this to the world, that simply means if you want to buy 10 copies and take 9 of them and carefully place them with people whose lives could be changed, I'll sign them. I'll personalize every one of them for you. If you'll do that, you're going to be invited to come Tuesday night at 6 o'clock Mountain Time for a live coaching session. It says 8 weeks on the website. You can stay as long as you want. It takes us 8 weeks to get through the book. You want to go through it twice? Come through it twice. I remember the day I got this inspiration. You want to coach with me privately? You can. I have an opening coming up in 2 months, and it's $10,000. That's the cost. Or you can buy 10 books, give 9 to friends, and you can come and join this group of all of these people that are doing this, and it'll be free. The reason why that model's there, anybody here had a financial challenge in the last little while? Anybody had a struggle? We've got our finger on the pulse of 17,000 clients. It is alarming. It is alarming. When I got that inspiration, I said, because I believe in God, I said, Father, how does that make sense? And he said, just watch. Watch. We're in the business of changing lives. Help me change 9 others, and I'll coach with you for free. And tonight, if you want to buy those 10, we'll also give you a copy of The Greatest Salesman in the World. 25 million copies of that book is sold. It's very literally life-changing, especially if you follow the instructions for studying it. Let me serve you. That's why I came here today. And I said earlier today, maybe just for one. Maybe, Rich, just for one. If it's just for one, it's worth the trip. You see, what I didn't say earlier is that in the darkest of the dark nights, when it just about came to an end, I remember crying out, I long to cry to the God of my youth, but the God of my youth will not hear my cry. I must change my God or change my cry. It was time to get very real because life and death was on the line. What I learned is I needed to change my cry. I wanted God to rescue me. He doesn't do that. He will never rob us of the very experiences we need to stretch and grow and become the person we're supposed to become. That's what this is all about. But He will inspire us, and He'll be a partner with us in the intentional creation of our lives. I made a promise that night, and I do everything in my power to live up to it every day. And the promise was this: show me how, and I will dedicate the rest of my life to sharing it with others. Whether it's 3 people or 3,000, I'll be there. And it's been a privilege to be with all of you tonight. If I can answer any questions, join me upstairs. I'm going to take this computer apart real quick. Go up there. If I can serve you, come on up. Let's visit about what matters most in life. And may you have the courage to intentionally create the life of your dreams. It is time for us to get about that which matters most. Let us give up the ease disease. Let us engage in life, embrace principles, connect and serve, create value everywhere we go, and enrich the world. May we live a life of significance is my hope. And thank you for your time tonight.